The stories from women who survived unspeakable crimes, fought back, and lived to tell their story. The Fox True Crime Podcast is listen now.
It's time now for one more thing and hit it now. Quickly, the son of legendary guitar player Van Halen, Wolfgang Van Halen, partnered with Mr. Holland's Opus Foundation to give $100,000 to meet schools where music programs are
on to debate.
All right. Good evening, everybody. It is 6:05 p.m. Calling this meeting to order. This is the regular business meeting of the Smithfield Township Board of Supervisors. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Members present include myself, Chair Jacob Pride, Vice Chair Robert Lovenheim, Supervisor Michael Albert, Township Manager Julia Heilicke, Administrative Coordinator Diana Salvi, Engineer John Tressler, and Solicitor Ron Karasak. The first item for consideration are the minutes of the February 28th, 2024 general meeting. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Lovenheim, second by Mr. Albert. Any questions?
Yeah, just one minor change. On page 4, it says the board reiterates their thoughts against a gravel road. As I recall, I said I didn't have a problem with the gravel road, but I did think it would need to be widened.
Sure. Okay,
That change can be.
yeah, we strike that then. I have no issue with striking that. Robert? Okay. All in favor with that change?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we had a standing executive session today from approximately 5:40 to 6:02 p.m. with regard to personnel and legal matters. And the other announcement is that the public comment period for renaming the Sambo Creek is closing on the 15th. So please make sure that you send your comments to Alex Jackson, our Conservation and Recreation Director. We have a page dedicated to that on the website where you can see us afterwards. Okay, and we have bills tonight, in the amount of $79,929.96. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Lovenheim. Do I hear a second?
I will second.
Second, Mr. Albert. Any questions?
I had one question. It's just on one of the line items. Oh, yeah, what's the treasurer's office bill?
The treasurer's office is the bill that we pay, for postage and whatnot for sending out municipal tax bills.
Wow. Oh, I guess there's a lot of people who send a lot of mail. That's the 3,329.
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
All right, any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, reports. We'll proceed to the solicitor's report. Dr. Harrison.
Thank you. Just give me a moment to note my records here. The past month was spent with respect to some of the hearing matters. There was another hearing held for the Manor Holdings, I think is the name of it, dealing with that motocross track. There was a hearing held last week or maybe the week before for public comment, which required obviously some preparation and attendance. Also some preparation and attendance, or some preparation and attendance to the file was necessary for tonight's, public hearing with respect to the Healthy Minds matter. And there was also some time spent with respect to preparing a third draft of the, I'll call it the road safety ordinance for lack of a better term. And also, I believe that we received last month a updated plan with respect to Franklin Hill. I think the planning professionals and Mr. Ty Meckes. So that required some review because that will be on, I assume, tomorrow night's planning commission meeting. And that pretty much takes care of what's happened in the last couple of weeks or so.
Just for, I wasn't able to attend the last zoning hearing board meeting, but as I recall, they needed 3 weeks for briefs, to review briefs. Can you just quickly advise?
The decision was that once these stenographic transcripts are received, and they may have already been received completely. I know I just got one from that lovely young lady over there, a day, 2-3 days ago, maybe. I don't know if that's the last hearing or not, though. But as soon as all the transcripts are received, then everyone will have 3 weeks in order to file legal briefs, which is like a term paper that says why your side should win. So that's how that will work. And then those briefs will be filed with the zoning board, and then they will make a decision with respect to the matter. And then remember, once that decision is made, there'll still be then 45 days from that date in which to file a written opinion, just like this case tonight that you're having. Once the hearing closes, then there's 45 days to issue a written decision as to what the supervisors want to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
You're welcome.
thank you. We'll proceed to the engineer's report.
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing to report this evening.
Easy enough. Tomorrow will be different.
That's the best report I've heard all.
Okay, next we have our consent agenda, which includes 3 items: the appointment of T&M Associates as township engineers, the consideration to ratify the advertisement for the Environmental Advisory Council meetings, and approving the Strausser maintenance contract for 2024 for our parks. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim, seconded by Mr. Albert. Any questions?
Yeah, so it does say Strausser maintenance contract, but it is multiple contracts. Is that correct? Or does it end up rolling into one?
It rolls into one, but they break them out for each park.
Each park,
Correct.
right? Waterfront.
And the rates are the same as the current contract, and you have a second year option to do the same before you re-advertise the next.
This is the second year.
Correct. So it'll be bittered out toward the end of the summer.
Total amount. Do we know the total amount of all of the contracts together? Julia?
I do not have that.
7 and 8 to 15.
Yep, it's roughly the 19 and change that it is.
15 and 17, 19. Okay. All right. And then the township engineers, we're keeping you, but you're switching to a new firm.
That is correct.
I don't have any more questions. So.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Next this evening is the continuation of the conditional use application by Healthy Minds. So council, please take your desired seats.
Which side?
Yeah, let me.
She wants to know.
How do you show up?
Where do you want that? I guess back in the corner over there without blocking the
I
fire.
would put that here if you could, so that the crowd can also see whatever you're gonna be presenting. So it's not to their,
They're not new exhibits.
that's probably what I, something like that. That everyone could then see what's what. I have to tighten it a little bit. There are microphones?
No,
they're-
yeah, they're omnidirectional, so you should be picked up.
Okay.
Speak up.
Here, let me.
Hold on, I got it.
Yeah. Is it not?
Hey.
I didn't want. Yeah.
I guess the main site plan would be best. What landscape plan, I guess.
And if I may just state, Mr. Chair, I believe we're still on the applicant's side of the case. I still think there's a witness or so on the applicant's side, and then we will see the status on the other side of the matter, which may require some additional movement, but I believe that's where we are at this point.
Yeah, do you want me to raise the issue that I mentioned previously?
If you want to raise it now, sir, you can raise it now.
To Chair and the board, as well as opposing counsel, I discussed this with your solicitor, Mr. Karasak.
And we have, counsel, just state your name and who you represent for the record, so it's clear.
My name is Jason Ulrich. I'm with Gross McGinley, 33 7th Street, Allentown, Pennsylvania, here on behalf of objector Christine Carroll and Robert Markey. I would like, we have a witness who is not available tonight, so we were going to ask that we would be very brief with our witnesses, that we would ask for one additional hearing to allow that. And I raised that with both the solicitor and opposing counsel, and they did not object to it, but I did want to bring it to your attention.
Yeah, I've got no objection with that.
I don't believe that that should be objectionable, because
Yeah.
an additional hearing doesn't create any prejudice
Correct.
to anyone. Like, there's no dirt moving that's going to occur in the meantime or whatever.
I don't think we
So
have an issue with
as
that.
long as we get another
It's-
extension for purposes of holding the hearing on the record or in writing, I would recommend that you do that.
I don't have an objection. I just would ask that we try to schedule that, expeditiously so that it continues to move forward.
Yeah, when we get through with.
I was good. What I would say, while Mr. Karasek will tell you that I am solicitor at many places, I will make my time available, just because I understand the applicant has their own deadlines, and I try to be appreciative of
Sure.
opposing counsel.
And we
She's
will-
certainly deserving.
And we will get an actual date and time as we did the last time. This way then, it doesn't need to be advertised. You can just come here like you did tonight and finish up, so. Okay.
Excellent. So, good evening. My name is Julie Bernstein. I'm an associate of Amy Farrell, who was here before at Kaplan Stewart. She was predisposed tonight, so I am filling in her place. As you know, our firm represents Healthy Minds in connection with its application for a conditional use permit to allow for a drug and alcohol inpatient treatment facility on the subject property. Without reiterating or rehashing what has happened in the past, as you know, we previously presented the operator of the proposed facility as well as the engineer who prepared the plans for this facility, set forth the objective requirements that are required within the ordinance in order to move forward. And I have with me tonight our final witness for the application. His name is Carly Schmel, who is a planning expert at the Urban Research and Development Corporation. And he is here to further discuss the proposed project and how it has been designed in a manner that's going to mitigate the perceived impacts to the community in terms of this project being cited where it's proposed. Just as a quick housekeeping, I believe that we previously handed out exhibit packets. I have no new exhibits to present, so I did bring with two boards of two of the plans just so that we can point and do a bit of a show and tell to guide everyone through. And with that, I would like to call Charlie Schmidt.
Raise your hand. You do solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And can you provide your business address for the board?
Yes, the name is Charlie or Charles Schmehl, Schmehl. I'm with Urban Research and Development Corporation in Bethlehem, 81 Highland Avenue, Bethlehem.
So we previously had pre-marked as exhibit A13, Charlie's CV for your reference. Is this an accurate representation of your employment and educational background?
Yes,
And have you ever testified as an expert witness before municipal court or the court for the Commonwealth in PA?
I've been found an expert in community planning and zoning in somewhere around 70 cases, 70 different cases in Pennsylvania.
And have you also testified as an expert witness in connection with a drug and alcohol rehabilitation facility in Pennsylvania?
Yes, I did for one in Luzerne County on behalf of the applicant, which was a Salvation Army. And I've had a lot of experience volunteering alongside people who are currently in a drug and alcohol rehab center.
Without rehashing his educational and work history, unless you guys would like more information, I would like to recognize Charlie Schmehl as an expert in community planning.
Before the board makes that decision, council, any questions of?
No objection. I
Okay.
didn't have Mr. Schnell before with myself.
So is there any questions of Mr. Schmehl? If not, I would recommend that you recognize him as an expert in the field of, I'm not sure what we're saying.
Community planning and
Community
zoning.
community planning and zoning.
Without objection.
So Charlie, were you retained by the applicant here to provide your opinion as a professional planner on the proposed use of this property as a drug and alcohol treatment facility?
Yes,
And were you also retained to evaluate this proposal's compatibility with the conditional use standards in the township's code in connection with the drug and alcohol treatment facility?
yes,
And are you familiar with the plans and supporting materials filed in connection with this application?
yes,
And have you reviewed the prior testimony that was presented to this board in connection with this application?
yes,
And have you visited the property?
yes,
Are you generally familiar with the surrounding properties as well?
yes,
And in your professional opinion, is the property a suitable location for this use?
yes, it is for multiple reasons. First off, the ordinance regulates the operation to only 60 beds, so it would not be allowed to be a large operation in any case. And the township has already revised the zoning, so this would be the only drug and alcohol rehab center that would be allowed in the entire R1 zoning district. So it's not a threat that someone's going to come in next week with another application next door to it on the same property, for instance. So the scale of use is important. 60 beds on 32 acres is a low intensity use. There are large setbacks from the homes and the roads. Substantial areas would remain landscaped and open. There would be, as seen on the site plans, there would be, most of the trees would be preserved and new landscaping would be added, which is important to make it compatible with the adjacent uses. There would be a low building and impervious coverage. The building coverage would be about 1% of the lot. The impervious coverage would be 5% versus the ordinance allows 25%, so much less than is allowed. It would meet the height requirements, which is 35 feet. And when you look at some of the exhibits that were previously presented, including exhibit number 11, I believe, is the view shed sketch.
I believe that's A12.
A12. When you look at some of the exhibits that were previously described and entered, including A12, the architectural plans and the view shed analysis, you can see that the building has been purposely designed to look like a clubhouse of a golf course or a rural spa or a country inn and not look like a institutional building. And that view shed analysis also shows you what the neighbors would see, and they mainly see trees in much of their view. It has a pitched roof as part of the design. And the proposal is to only have one sign exterior to the property along the road, and that would just be so people who have an appointment can find the driveway. And that sign would typically just say Healthy Minds and the address. It wouldn't say, here's a drug and all rehab center. The property has suitable access near a collector road that connects to two major roads. And the zoning ordinance, when the zoning ordinance was written, this was determined to be a reasonable, appropriate location for the use. The conditional use that is allowed requires that objective standards be met and that the township can add reasonable conditions, which the applicant would like to work with the township on to craft those conditions. But it isn't allowed use, and it was specifically provided for in this zoning district. All treatment would be on site, so there's not driving back and forth to get the clients to another facility. As was testified that there would be limited traffic, similar to what you would find in a nursing home. The clients would not be allowed to have cars. Visitors would only be allowed a few hours per week. And much of the traffic would simply be the employees coming to and from work and box trucks coming in with food for the dining hall. The clients are there voluntarily. That's important because if you compare it to some facilities where there have been difficulties, the people often are there involuntarily. They were committed by a court system. In this case, there's a commitment by the operator that you would only be able to attend this facility if you were voluntarily there and you wanted to get better, you wanted to be treated, you wanted to be there. So in that case, there's no incentive for anybody to want to run away. So those are the main reasons why the location is suitable.
Can I speak to the location a moment? Because I've also walked the location like you have. And at the last session, in fact, I asked the engineer a question about why cited where it was. And the answer I got was, well, this would be at least intrusive to the current plan of the golf course. But I don't think we're here to approve golf courses. We're here to approve a drug and rehab center. And my feeling is this, that the site that's been chosen, when I say the site, not the 32 acres, but the site where this will be is on a hill at one end of the property. And it overlooks much of Cherry Creek Road and the residents on Cherry Creek Road. And what I'm worried about is this. You're right in saying it can be designed so it looks like a country club. But at night, even with our laws and regulations about lighting and lighting being, not able to go beyond the limits of the area, it's still going to be a huge lighted mass, which all these residents are going to see. And my feeling is we're very committed in this township to open space and also dark skies, which is part of it. And what I'm wondering is why there? If you look at the site further towards the other end of the site, about in the middle, there is a pond and there's a whole area that's open. There's also another, their engineer called it a road, but they're not roads, they're really golf cart tracks. But there's another golf cart track that comes out at Totsgap Road. And we're at an early stage here. There hasn't been a lot spent on this site yet. And I'm wondering whether the site itself could be moved closer to where that pond is, where it's not on the hill, where it's not creating, I don't know if anybody can remember the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where the spaceship comes down at night on a hillside. It will not be visible the same way. And I urge you to think about that because I think that's going to be a consideration here, just in terms of the health, safety, and welfare that we're guarding for the residents of this community. It's just open space, dark space. It's as simple as that. And it seems like there's a better site than what you have chosen.
I suggest that the applicant can look at alternatives and that could be discussed as part of the working out of conditions on the approval. I mean, there are many natural feature limitations and ordinance limitations, so it's not a matter of putting it may not be easy to put it in the center of the site.
Well, neither you or I can speak from the engineer's point of view.
Yes.
But it would be nice to have an engineer's input on this.
I just want to say, for what it's worth, we're talking about the use and not the actual land development plan. If it were granted, then we're facing that conversation, so that will be separate.
That is correct. All of those details of engineering will be addressed at the land development stage, particularly lighting and grading and
I
things
bring it
of
up
that
now
nature.
only because this is an early stage.
Correct,
And
correct.
it's a stage where changes could be made from relatively modest sums compared to what they will be later.
You are correct that decisions on building location preferably would be made early to reduce the need for re-engineering.
Right.
On an issue of lighting, as I believe the board is aware, but just for the public, with modern lighting fixtures and with the ordinances that the township has and through the engineering review process, it is possible to have all the lighting downward, no reflection into the sky. It is possible to have no spillover of light onto a residential property. The lighting can be aimed directly where it is desired and away from where it is not desired. As far as the building lighting, I don't believe there would be any need for spotlights. And there is a curfew in this type of use, so the bedroom lights would typically be off at night. You wouldn't be seeing a bank of brightly lit bedroom lights looking out onto your house.
Charlie, you also, I know you're not an engineer, but you did review the lighting plan that was presented and submitted for this project, correct?
Yeah, I believe it was a draft plan, but yes.
And did you notice that there is actually 0 footlight?
Yes, it
candles
shows
at the edge of the property?
You are correct. It shows 0-foot candles according to the current draft design, far inward from the existing homes. So it's not even just a matter, it's 0 at the border, it's pretty far in. They were able to achieve 0-foot candles. So that is no spillover of light. Now, a certain amount of light within the property is important for security and safety. But we can certainly limit the spillover without causing any glare or problems for the residents.
But it's your understanding that as it's presently designed, which presumably has been, the site has been chosen due to engineering details and site features, that the lighting that's being proposed will not have a spillover effect on neighboring properties.
Correct, by design and by ordinance and by reviews by the township engineer, all those things are easily achievable. And you can limit the height of the light standards too as part of that process.
Did you also have a conversation with Chuck, the civil engineer, about the siting and why the driveway access and siting the building where it's currently located is particularly safe?
Yes, it's the location where there's the best sight distance, which is very important for safety.
And so would it be your understanding and your professional opinion that the location of the improvements is likely being dictated based on a safe way to access the property?
Correct. You typically locate the driveway wherever you can have the best visibility in both directions.
And again, as the chairman mentioned, your understanding is that during land development, there will be further opportunities to make adjustments to the engineering and specifics of this plan, correct?
Yes.
And in your professional opinion, will this use have a negative impact on the surrounding properties?
No, and for several reasons. One is the way that the views from the adjacent properties have been considered in the landscaping and the tree preservation. Secondly is that most of the existing trees are being preserved. There would be very minimal disturbance of steeply sloped lands, no disturbance of wetlands and floodplain areas. So the natural features would be protected as part of this process. To have compatibility, the applicant has discussed the possibility of split rail fencing to designate the areas where the clients would come outside to grab a smoke or to do an outdoor yoga class or something like that, to define the space with a split rail fence. That type of split rail fence, again, directs them away from going beyond the designated outdoor area. The applicant has worked, as you heard in previous testimony, to really mitigate the negative impacts. You also, many of the standards that are in the conditional use process for Smithfield Township is more aimed towards industrial uses. So in this particular situation, there's really no concern about vibration. There's really no concern about dust or odor, which you might find in certain industrial uses. And there's no reason to believe that there would be any unusual noise, and the setbacks would certainly help to decrease any potential noise issues. Most of the lot would remain open space. There's been testimony about the minimal traffic that would be generated. And the building also would be, there also has been testimony by Mr. Harvey about the conditions he would volunteer about the limits of the background of the persons who would be treated in the facility. Including limits on certain past behavior and limits on not being court ordered to the facility. There was testimony by Mr. Harvey about the security that would be in place, the camera system, the silent alarms after curfew, and the security gate at the entrance. So all those things are important matters that can easily be addressed by conditions on the approval to help protect and minimize impacts to the adjacent neighbors.
And in your professional opinion, do you believe that the use will have a positive or negative impact on the health, safety, and general welfare of the township?
I would say it would have a neutral or positive impact for multiple reasons. We already talked about traffic. It would be a closed campus, so there would not be visitors allowed except for a few hours a week. The goal is to have a quiet and protective environment for the persons who are being treated in a natural setting. So many of the features that currently make the property attractive would continue to make the property attractive under this use. There would be 70 new jobs. And the important thing there is that many of those jobs, almost all those jobs, would be year-round jobs with good steady incomes, and most of them would have full benefits. That can be a shortage of those types of jobs in Monroe County because many of the jobs are seasonal, or else people have to commute long distances to find those types of jobs. The property, this type of use is extensively regulated by the state of Pennsylvania. And they require trained staff to operate the facility. So that also helps to protect the health and safety. There will be no hazardous storage. There will be detailed stormwater reviews and approvals needed. And the building would be fully sprinklered. So all those items are important to protect the health and safety.
And you've reviewed the ordinance for the conditional use standards that are applicable to this particular type of use, correct?
Yes.
And in your professional opinion, do you believe that the use that's being proposed here is any more impactful than what another similar type of use would be.
This is an allowed use in this location. And based upon the testimony and the proposed conditions and the site plans and the exhibits, it's my professional opinion that this use would be less impactful than the typical alcohol and drug rehabilitation center that's being built today.
I have no further questions for you. Thank you.
We'll see if Attorney Ulrich has any questions by way of cross, and then assuming he's done, then the board can ask questions if it wishes.
I'll be brief if that's okay, but I do have a few questions.
It's all the time you need. You're here to present your
Thank
client's
you
case.
so much. Can I, is this a copy of, here's a copy of ordinance 238, which was passed and includes the
2020 amended.
that's the curative amendment from 2020, is that correct?
It appears to be.
And that is what the basis that allows the type of usage in this facility is, correct?
This is the use provision that allows this use, correct?
Okay. And it's your opinion that that is valid, that ordinance?
Objection. This is not an appropriate forum for any types of challenges to an ordinance. They should be presumed valid. And the only proper procedure to contest the validity of zoning ordinance would be, if it's substantive, to go to the zoning hearing board with a proper challenge, or to go to the court of common pleas if this is a procedural challenge. This is our conditional use application, and it is under an ordinance that has not been challenged, and so we would object to any line of questioning suggesting otherwise, as it should be presumed.
I believe that your statements are correct. But this is cross-examination, and he can ask that question. Whether Mr. Schmel knows the answer or not, he may not know. And if he does not know, then he's got to move on. So I will overrule the objection and allow the question.
Thank you, Mr. Garza.
Could you repeat it, please?
Do you believe that this ordinance is valid?
I do not have any personal knowledge of the procedures used to adopt this ordinance. And I also would have to have information about the time limits on a procedural challenge to make any type of
Understood.
suggestion.
So beyond that, I would ask for the admission of the ordinance as part of the record, if it's not already there.
Okay, and I'm
As
not
O-
sure
I
if
guess
it's
O1.
part, yeah, I'm not sure if it's part of the record. This doesn't have to be on that record. But if that's the case, then we should make this an objector exhibit.
So I would call it O1.
All right, then let's have this young lady here mark it. And then it's part of the record here.
It might be O2, I'm not sure.
I don't need it. Let me check my notes, but
The online thing doesn't indicate if there's any objector exhibits, but I believe my associate did submit one.
Yes, they were submitted, but at the last hearing, we had discussed that they wouldn't be entered into the record until the end of it, so I couldn't come up because they're not formally there yet.
So we'll mark it as O2 then, just for. O2, please.
That needs to go into that.
We're okay.
Okay, I'll mark it O2, and if we find that there already is an O2, I'll be.
Like I said, I'll try to keep it moving, guys.
Yeah,
You have- I know you have an agenda after this.
It's, don't worry.
Then I do have a couple of questions beyond the ordinance itself, okay? With respect to what you had indicated, that you believe this could be either a neutral or a positive benefit for the municipality and the local residents. Does that include, potential costs of police and or fire that might, burden the township? Additional costs compared to a golf course?
We have not calculated any of those impacts. But I would note that almost any use would generate some additional community costs. This would be a taxable use that would pay taxes to the school, to all the entities, including the township, to help cover some of those costs. There may be some offsets. If this facility is successful in reducing alcohol and drug addiction, Over the long run, there may be fewer ambulance calls in Smithfield Township.
That's presuming it was all residents from Smithfield.
Presuming a percentage of the clients over the years were Smithfield residents or within the area serviced by the ambulance corps.
So, and you use the phrase, closed facility, is that correct?
Yes,
So in terms of closed facility, how, and based on the testimony that's already been presented, how does that, how do they intend to present or stop their patients from simply walking off the premises? Walking onto a neighbor's yard, how do they delineate?
there was testimony that in order to leave the facility, you have to follow a certain process. There was, I believe, testimony that there is a driver on site. And if a person is insistent that they want to leave, they are driven from the site.
But there's no policy or procedure in place as of yet.
That was my understanding of the intent from Mr. Harvey.
Now,
I believe there was testimony on that.
now, with respect to additional, burdens on the neighboring parcels, there's been no use, it's suggested perhaps a split rail fence that might basically fence in a portion of the facility, is that correct?
That's what's currently being offered.
So will that, and my understanding is they're intending to continue the usage of the golf course, is that correct?
That's what I'm told.
So,
A very limited current use.
so wouldn't that possibly impact the golfers that they might be, possibly accosted by?
Objection, this is speculative.
He's an expert on this, he would be able to answer what his opinion is.
I would sustain the objection, but I think you can ask it
I'll
a different way.
rephrase. Based on, since the golf course usage is continuing, is it possible that the proposed impact from patients could affect the golfers?
I have no reason to believe that would be a problem, but anything can happen with in any location. I mean, there could be someone accosted in the parking lot out here.
But it is still your understanding, you're going to continue the operation of the golf course, so that's.
What I'm told is it would continue to have its current limited, very limited operation.
And when you say limited operation, do you know what those hours are going to be?
Objection, we're here on behalf of Healthy Minds in connection with their plans for utilizing the property that they're going to lease for a drug and alcohol facility. We are not here on behalf of a golf course operator that our understanding will continue to operate next door.
And my response to that objection would be, obviously, it's already that usage, you're adding an additional use on top of it, so it is relevant to the question as to whether they're going to be increasing additional burdens on the township.
I will overrule the objection since the witness said that there will be a limited current operation or use of the premises. By saying that, you can ask that question. Now, whether he knows the hours or days or times, that's another story. But by him saying that, you can ask that next question.
Are you aware of what the hours of operation or continued operation will be for the golf course?
No, my understanding is though that the scale of use is intended to be very similar to what it is today, which is a very limited number of people using it.
Now, you had said about silent alarms on the property, is that correct too?
Yes, particularly after curfew hours, when everyone is required to be indoors. Mr. Harvey testified that he is open to a condition to establishing alarms that would notify the staff that a door has opened. And that my understanding is there would be recorded security cameras also at those doors.
Okay. Would the applicant be willing to accept additional conditions during operating hours to make sure that people don't leave the premises?
And those conditions can be discussed. I don't have the authority to agree to any conditions.
The operator, just to chime in, the operator who testified previously said that he is open to additional conditions. We're certainly willing to kind of negotiate what would be appropriate and could continue to function if he were to open. We obviously would want his input on that, but he said very clearly at the first hearing that he would be open to additional conditions that were appropriate for this use.
And in fairness to the witness, he's not the applicant, so to ask him whether they would agree to additional conditions, it probably isn't the right witness to ask that.
With respect to the borders of the facility and the leased facility and property, is it possible that it would be beneficial to put up additional fencing and or tree screening to prevent neighbors from seeing this facility?
Addition of trees is an easy addition as a condition to be discussed. Mr. Harvey has told me that he does not want it to look or feel like a prison. He wants people to feel that they're in a natural setting, that they're supposed to enjoy the natural outdoors. And that is why a split rail fence is proposed. It is a demarcation of property. It is not a physical containment that you would find in a prison.
So it's not a security feature.
It is a feature to direct the clients to stay within certain areas and to not trespass.
But to ask the question again, because you didn't answer, it's not a security feature, right?
You can walk through a split rail fence.
So the answer is it's not a security feature, yes?
It is not a high security feature. It is a feature designed to avoid trespassing.
Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Any direct counsel?
No, I don't.
Okay, then we'll see if the supervisors have any questions, and if their questions then spur any additional questions by you or by a council, then you can ask those questions. We'll pass it over to the supervisors now if they have any questions.
Michael, you were a bit more prolific than I, so you have any?
Oh, Mike, no, I'm just taking notes on everything I said. I don't think I have any questions.
Okay, Robert. I think you already answered that we were going to, potentially stipulate, certain conditions. But I think that's out of your wheelhouse, but I think that will help. It's probably something we'll want to talk about when it comes to the use. If it gets there.
All right, so can we say then the board has no questions? Let me ask Mr. Trustler, do you have any questions? Do not. You do not. All right, well, that being said, I guess there's nothing to do on then redirect or recross because the questions have been asked, so. Is this witness through? We're there yet. I understand you're a party and you can ask questions. I just want to make sure we're through with you guys all right now. Those of you who have been designated as parties, you can ask questions with respect to what was said by this witness. So just state your name for the record.
Dr. McTurry, stand up.
Yes, I'm Charlie Cohan.
Yeah, and go by the podium, Mr. Cohen, because that's where that microphone is.
Okay.
You'll probably be heard a little bit.
Hey, I'm Charlie Cohan. And I live in a property that's close to this facility. Did you visit the facility at night, this area that you were looking at nighttime?
No, I don't believe I did.
Are you familiar with the previous facility that was built just up the road on the same property that's currently there?
I heard about it, read about it, discussed it, but I have not visited the other controversial property.
Have you seen the light show that goes on every night on that current property?
I have not.
Okay. It's bright, it's very bright, and it's 24 hours a day. You mentioned that these lights that were being put around the facility, I'm assuming that they're gonna have lights planned in the back of the property in case a resident does in fact walk into the back of the property so that they don't injure themselves.
You need a certain amount of lighting simply for safety, so people don't trip. But the clients are under a curfew and they really should not be walking around late at night.
You had mentioned earlier that you have seen the properties that are adjacent to this planned facility. Do you have any idea how close the closest properties are to this facility, planned facility?
I'd have to measure it with a scale. Not all of them appear on the plan I'd have to go back to the aerial photos. So I cannot give you a definitive answer on the distance.
Could you guess how approximate, how close to the properties are?
Objection.
That,
I
that's
think
a
we-
state, we're not gonna have.
Okay, well, I'll
What is-
ask-
What is your address?
my issue is that we're 200 yards from the property.
Are you on Cherry Valley Drive or?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure, there are 3 properties right down there at the bottom of the hill. Are you, aware of the angle of perspective from my home that's at the bottom of this hill to where this actual facility is?
I think it would be helpful if one of the perspectives covers your angle. If you wish to go over and look at the exhibit on the perspectives, I think that would help the discussion.
Okay,
If you're included in that sketch, I know the designers did include multiple different angles of view.
the reason why I bring this issue up is because you see this angle that's shown on this perspective right here. It looks fairly flat. This isn't flat at all. This angle is pretty substantial. I'm gonna guess about 35, 40 degrees. The reason why I'm mentioning this is you say that the lights that they're planning on putting behind this property that will be on presumably 24 hours a day are gonna be angled downward.
That is the standard way of designing modern light fixtures.
I guess my concern is how could you come to the opinion that there wouldn't be any light issues then for those of us who are living at the bottom of this property, if in fact the property is above us and these lights are being angled downward?
With modern light fixtures, you can angle the lights at exactly the angle that you want. There are mirrors inside the fixture. So if you want it to be a 30-degree angle of light, you can design it that way. It's very much different from the light fixtures of the 1980s. They can put the light exactly where they want it and not where they don't want it.
Okay.
And that would have to be proven to the township engineer as part of the land development phase.
You had mentioned on your report that there's no plan to remove any of the current trees that are surrounding the property.
I did not say none. I believe I said the vast majority of the current trees would be preserved simply to build the building and the parking. I believe some trees would need to be removed. But the vast majority of the trees are intended to be maintained.
When you visited the property, do you believe, in your opinion, that this in fact is what the view of the property looks like from our homes, just like this?
I didn't trespass, so I did not go on any private property to look at the views from private property.
I guess my question is, to the north of the property, are you of the opinion that there are coniferous trees between the planned building and on these 3 homes that are located down there?
If there are not, and if it would be valuable, I believe that would be a reasonable condition to add some new evergreen trees.
Are you aware that, did you visit this property in any of the winter months?
I think it would have been yes, it would have been in the winter months.
So are you aware that 5 months out of the year, this property is completely visible and none of these trees matter?
If there are issues with visibility, I believe a reasonable condition would be to plant additional evergreen trees.
Where would they be planted?
Wherever they would be most beneficial to obstruct views from the existing homes.
Okay. That's all the questions I had.
Thank you. Based upon those questions, any questions by either council?
Just briefly, since, Charlie Cohen had just asked about, our exhibit 812, your understanding is that these, illustrative view sheds were prepared based upon real photographs taken from specific locations that are shown on the map on this plan, is that correct?
That's my understanding, and my understanding is that they did consider the topography.
No further questions.
Any questions, council?
No.
Board, any questions?
I'll just observe that, when we're speaking of that. That panel, that's the lower right one, right, which is he was talking about, lower right.
Yep, number 5, that has some
I
stone
guess,
in it.
I can't see the number. Assuming, yeah, it's this one. From my observations, it reminds me of what's on my rear view mirror that says, objects are a lot nearer than they appear. Because I think that when you're on Cherry Valley Road, that hill and what would be built on it is much nearer than it is, the perspective on that drawing, or that, you know, composite, let's call it.
Excuse me. Can I ask one more question?
One more question.
Thank you. You mentioned that the backside facility is going to be available for people to go out and smoke. And are you aware of what percentage of people that are enrolled into an alcohol program actually are nicotine addicted and smoke compared to the general population of 25%?
I'm told it's very high, but I do not know the percentage.
Look, 85%, which means that roughly 51 of these people are going to be coming out in the backyard and smoking multiple times a day, 200 yards from my property. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
I would note that, you know, there could be some discussion about where the smoking areas are located so that they have minimal impact upon the neighbors. That smoking can be limited to certain portions of the property, but you can't tell these people they can't smoke.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Larry?
I have a brief one on that redirect on that.
Sure.
You just said that you can't tell them not to smoke. Why couldn't you put a restriction that there be a no smoking facility?
It is part of the treatment. You cannot have them go cold turkey on smoking at the same time that they're going through a very difficult
But
transition with other
that's a
substances.
treatment issue, not a zoning and or planning issue, correct?
You can bring up Mr. Harvey again to answer that question, who has the expertise. But my understanding is, if you have a person dealing with addiction, you definitely want to make sure they have coffee and nicotine.
But as a planning expert, you certainly could agree that you could put a restriction on no smoking, correct?
I think the reasonable condition would be
Answer
to
my
limit.
question, yes or no?
I don't know if that's the authority of the board in a zoning ordinance to regulate that.
But for the health, safety and welfare, it could be.
The question is whether the public is affected. And I believe a reasonable condition would be to limit the locations where the smoking can
Is
occur.
Mr. Cohen and my client not public?
It's a large property. The smoking doesn't have to occur near the existing homes.
Thank you.
There can be a reasonable condition with a designated smoking area.
Thank you. That's all I have.
I have one follow-up. Again, these questions are discussing smoking in the context of a drug and alcohol treatment facility as compared to any other type of use on the property. And is it your understanding that what's being proposed here and the amount of smoking we would anticipate of these clients would be no different than that of another drug and alcohol treatment facility?
Yeah, there's no reason to believe that any of the impacts would be more severe than any other typical drug and alcohol rehabilitation facility.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Just trying to catch up here. Okay, so assuming there are no further questions, do you have any other witnesses with respect to your case?
I have no more witnesses, so
So your case is in at this point unless some unforeseen or unexpected circumstance occurs.
that is correct. We would like to reserve our right for a rebuttal witness if that became necessary.
That's fine. All right. So now that being said, counsel, now you said you have a witness who is not available.
That's
And
correct.
so you would like the matter to be rescheduled for another
I
night.
think it's possible
For those witnesses, again, we have on the record a grant by council with respect to continuance within the 45-day window if we need one. So that being said, gentlemen, it's on your plate as to what date you think you might want to reschedule this for.
We'll, and as you're doing us a favor, we will make ourselves.
Our next regular meeting is the 27th at 6. Work.
If it works for the opposing council.
Yeah, we can be available.
26th, you,
27th.
27th,
Or
the Wednesday.
27th,
March, correct.
Correct.
2 weeks from today. Right?
Yes.
I'm sure the good people of Salisbury Township can do without me for.
that's, Wednesday.
Correct.
I have to check my schedule. I might be involved in a Bangor Borough Zoning Hearing Board meeting. They meet on the fourth Wednesday and I'm their solicitor. And it doesn't happen that often, you know, the moon
Yeah.
has to be just right in the days of the week. This March, I believe on the 27th, I have a zoning hearing that I would not be able to make this for. Not that you need me here, and I don't mean to be cute about that. You can still hold the hearing without me if that's what you wish. Is
The next one would be April 10th if that doesn't work.
that the second Wednesday?
Yes, that's our
No,
regular. meeting.
that works. I don't have anything that work.
April 10th.
Can we see if, I know there's other parties, are there
You want to go
additional?
off the record while we.
Yeah. I'll-
Yeah, don't put this all on the record. You don't have anyone else?
I don't know if any of the other parties, I know that you're one of the parties, do you have witnesses that you're going to present? I'd really like to have it wrap up in
The next
one
year.
more, so, you know, I'm willing to push to April if we really can get this done, otherwise I would like to have it move forward on March 27th, if for some reason we need 2 more hearings.
Okay,
We only have 2 witnesses, both of whom will be less than 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay.
Do you have any witnesses? No.
Well, let's do it on the 27th, because the overwhelming likelihood is we're not gonna make a decision in that instance
you
anyway.
can do it on the 27th, then,
Yeah.
not the 10th?
Yeah, we'll do it the 27th.
Do we have a backup solicitor?
Associate that we don't know about.
No, I don't have any associate, any sole
No.
practice.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's okay since we can rule on objections ourselves if we need to. All right, so let's do 3/27 at 6 PM for the next hearing, and then we'll address briefing, schedule, all that fun.
Great, thank you.
Thank you to everyone. May we be excused?
Sure. We'll recess this until then.
I would say reset for a couple minutes so that
Yeah.
everyone can leave and.
Super. See you again. He's working with that.
You grab my.
Yeah. Tell us and I.
I will.
Thank you.
It's all Attorney Cousins last night and I fell and
Beautiful. We're unmuted. Okay, everybody, we're going to get back going, the rest of our agenda. The first item is the consideration of the formation of a Smithfield Township Economic Development Committee.
I'd like the motion to table that. That's on my side. I still have yet to meet with individual Middle Smithfield Township, so.
Motion by Mr. Albert. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Levenheim. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. New business, and this one is brief on the discussion for the objectives of our March 20th zoning work session. I know that we had talked about inconsistencies in definitions,
Yeah,
and especially when they're inconsistent compared to the supplementary regulations. I think that's a pretty good place to start, because then that'll get to the underlying uses that we have defined, and they should match the schedule that's under chapter 27, so.
has the meeting been advertised already, or,
Yes,
and what's the agenda say?
3 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
it's at 4 o'clock on Wednesday, the 20th of March.
Yeah.
We have not posted an agenda for that yet, but it's going to be something, discussed zoning code.
Well, I think we're trying to limit it. I mean, we're
Strictly.
We're focusing on the definitions.
Because then I think we can have a follow-up that'll,
So then we can say specifically discuss zoning code definitions, and move from there.
I would think towards a series of maybe monthly meetings.
Yeah.
We've got a lot to get through. And about 3 or 4 years ago, I even went through the whole code and
speaking
made
of,
notes on inconsistencies. Some of that is irrelevant now, and some of it is still relevant, so we should go through all of it at some point.
okay. Do we need any action?
no. Just make sure that that's what the agenda says.
Yep.
And the planning commission, hopefully, at least a couple of them can make it to that meeting.
Were they invited?
Yes.
Yes, it's a joint session,
Okay.
It's 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
4?
Yeah,
I
because
have
you
not
have,
Bethel at 7.
yeah, I was gonna say you
so
had
that
to leave at 7 and we wanted to
That works out well. Okay.
read last time.
Okay.
There are all those colors on the calendar. Okay, all right, I think that's that on that hearing. So now we'll proceed with public comment. Okay.
I guess you all know that we had a meeting on Sunday of disgruntled taxpayers. I'd like to give you two the honorable thing to do and both resign as supervisors today. If not, we're legally going to remove you.
Okay, is that your comment?
Well, at least you made some not a liar when I said you couldn't do it. You didn't do it.
Thanks for your comment. Who's next? Go ahead.
The other stuff that you were talking about, is that open to the public?
Yes.
Okay.
And it'll be on Zoom too. Okay. Anybody else? Rob?
Hi, yes, good evening all. I'm just wondering about the noise ordinance and the status of it. Julia, you've been so good in keeping us informed. Is it still in a state of approval? And if so, or if when it's available, where can we get that app so that we can start using it once it becomes available?
The app that was referenced in discussions is available. I don't know if you have an iPhone or a Samsung,
iPhone?
but check your app store.
Okay.
And that's where I found
Is
it.
there a name that I can make sure I get the same
It's
one?
called NIOSH-SLM.
We'll email you that. Put that on.
That's the
on the page for that.
sound meter.
On the agenda, is it not for the planning commission? Just one last cursory check through because we got some stuff back, right?
We haven't gotten anything back
From the
from the
county?
county yet. So
Okay.
right now, we submitted it to them. It's still sitting. They're running a little bit behind on their stuff right now. But that is still pending.
For what it's worth, I did visit there and that was weird. He came out, but he was gonna approach me and I was like, I'm just gonna,
Quite a
leave.
mess and they're,
I definitely saw everything that, I mean, I've been to your house twice now and I've seen.
hence we'd love to get Ken out there because they're about to pour concrete to the second level and the roof above. We have a third neighbor who lives downhill, who's aghast at what's going on. She couldn't join us this evening, but.
Has
I'll
Ken
just you to keep-
not been there?
I'm sorry,
Has Ken not been there?
not to my knowledge.
Ken promised he would go this week. He was
Okay.
gonna get
All right.
back to me.
Did the
and-
conservation
Because
district-
they built a road, they built a road and brought in 12 triaxles, that nothing has been verified as pure, clean.
We called it the Taj Mahal of garages.
Yes, you did, sir, and rightfully so.
Rob, did the conservation district visit there or did they just correspond?
I spoke with
OC,
DEP, I talked with OC at the Monroe.
Yeah.
And then I spoke to a lady named Carlotta at the DEP and issued a complaint with her. And she asked me, did I report it to Monroe County first? And I said, those are the people who sent me to you. So I've contacted both of them currently.
All right, we'll have an update for you then this week. Anyone else? Tammy?
Okay, so I have a question. You get this, sign ordinance back? And then what is the procedure from there? It has to be approved through the supervisors? I'm trying to get like.
Correct, and that'll only take 7 days of advertising, so hopefully we should be all set for our April.
It's not in zoning, right?
Correct.
So it doesn't need to go to county planning?
No, if it's a standalone, it doesn't have to go to county plan.
So we should be in good shape for our April 10th meeting then to formally approve it then.
Right, my concern is weekends, who would be available then, you know what I'm saying?
No, we're preparing for that. We've talked with Ken about that specifically, especially in relation to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
No.
Oh, sorry, I missed you, Pete.
Yeah, Pete Bagley, just a few questions, called attention to the order of the meeting. According to the Township Supervisors Handbook, public comment is supposed to commence right after the Pledge of Allegiance.
That's not spelled out in the code, so you
That's
have,
right here, do you want the link?
no, I'm aware of the
Code.
I'm aware of the handbook, that's not in the second class township code. You have the option under the Open Meetings Act to take comment on everything before you vote. And that could be one large public comment section, and then you don't have to ask each time. We ask each time, and then we have public comment on non-agenda items after. That's within the purview of the code.
Okay, I'll look into that. Can I ask the rate of pay of the supervisors?
Correct, there's a stipend, $2,500 a year, that is set by the second class township code. And then for extra appointed work is $26.59 per hour.
And is there a limit to the hours?
Yes, 20 hours per week.
And 26.
And that's generally not exhibited each time.
Generally not, what?
It's generally not met each time.
Right.
Michael's not a working supervisor. I don't always put in that many hours. A lot of what I've been doing has been onboarding Diana, so she has more of those webmastery and social media design, those types of tasks that are onboarded onto her. And Robert also doesn't always meet that.
Right, and then.
I also would point out that we're allowed mileage. I don't think any of us have ever taken it. Yeah,
That's good. It's a small township, we appreciate it.
Yes.
When was the last time you had a raise for your hourly rate?
This year.
This year, what was the previous rate?
There were 3 rates previously. The last one was, for me, it was $18.54 at the moment. We settled with the Board of Auditors, because as you can see in our neighboring municipalities, their rates are considerably higher. We're still considerably lower than them, but at the rates we were at then,
Well, I
they
don't think East
equalized.
Stratford boroughs.
Correct, not East
Boroughs are
Stratford.
Much lower.
Well, boroughs don't do it, well, certain boroughs can do it. It depends on your size. You have to be less than 3,000. The legislature wants to change that. But no, so Smithfield, much like the other second class townships, has this, so you'll see the rate in Middle Smithfield is generally about 37 an hour, and in Stroud it's 35 an hour.
So you voted to go from 18 to 20?
I did not vote to go to anything. The Board of Auditors, an independent body, they're the ones that approved that.
But you threw them.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, the rate was unequal. When we had a previous supervisor here, his rate was considerably higher than the others, and we didn't feel that there was a need to have seniority for appointed work.
How are you doing 2 jobs and putting in hours? You work for this Madden lady and then you're still putting in hours here. And I think, Roberts is 20 hours every time.
I think a lot of people know that I don't sleep very much, so I'm constantly doing something.
Or perhaps with what you've done in the tax structure, you will give up your pay?
I honestly wouldn't be able to do that, and I don't think any supervisor would do that. If they choose, Michael chose not to, and that's his prerogative.
Maybe you should because of the burden you put on the taxpayers in this community.
I understand where we're at. We're still lower than 11 other municipalities in Monroe County. We had to catch up. We had 30 years of systematic underinvestment in Public Works.
That's not true, don't start it. You've got $400,000 in ridiculous wages.
Oh, I'm not gonna get into that. That's not true. And we're not gonna talk personnel either in an open session. That has to be in executive.
Then why did you raise our taxes?
We had to raise tax. One, we need to support our emergency services, fire and EMS in particular. We also desperately needed to invest in the upkeep of our equipment. Most of our vehicles in the shop next door are early 2000s, late 90s. We had to extend a snowplow by a few inches because it was only 9 feet. There's a number of examples over there, and particularly the in-house repair versus contracting out, going to local garages and whatnot. We found it to be more cost effective to take it more in-house. The same with our in-house paving. We decided to do more of that in-house, whereas we used to contract at roughly $250,000 per mile. So we found it more cost effective to keep it in-house at lower labor rates and make sure that we're supporting the initiatives that we have now and can pave our 54 miles of road over the next 10 years.
We were.
Sir, may I have your name, please?
Pardon me?
May I have your name?
Scott Valentine,
Thank you.
sorry.
That's okay.
We were presented with a means by which through the state touristry board or something, I wish I could remember as much what this gentleman said, where you could acquire enough money to offset that tax that you have put on.
Well, and
For fire, EMS, and those type of services, because a very large percentage of it is the result of tourism.
sure. So the thought with that, and I'm not, an expert on the county and how they implemented that tax, but I know it's 3% occupancy tax on hotel rooms, inns, et cetera. And that funds their designated tourist bureau, which in this case is Pocono Mountain Visitors Bureau, and the county takes a 4% administrative fee on that. So the hotel tax in all likelihood would have to be higher, and I don't know if the legislature allows the county to make it higher in order to offset that, because currently we would be taking money from the Visitors Bureau, which might have a downside to that. And we don't have that authority unilaterally. That would have to come from the county commissioners.
No, well, I wish I could remember all the things this gentleman said, but
Sure.
I'll tell you what, the way he explained it, and he had the numbers right there, is that you guys could offset this tax without any problem, and that this money was sitting there waiting to get it. And apparently other towns are utilizing it as well. And I apologize, I don't have more information.
You're okay. I'm familiar.
Is that Albert? I can't
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
Mr. Albert was there, and he saw the entire demonstration.
So you're talking about Steve's presentation, and Steve actually referenced that he has spoken with Jacob.
Okay.
I think I told Steve, I want to hear more, understand more. Obviously, I think, not having this increase, it's now done. Certainly making sure it doesn't have to happen ever again is important. I think well, the other thing, and I raised this the other meeting, just so make sure we're all aware of what we're talking about. The tax bill that everyone just received is all municipal, so it's your county tax.
Right,
Yeah, okay, I just want to make sure, because I had several people say, you increased,
So if the gentleman could show you guys how to do this.
No,
And
we're familiar that the problem is it's not within the supervisor's authority. The county commissioners, they have the
Okay, so
enforcement.
you work with the county commission, but
Right.
what I'm telling you is that if this guy could present this to you. Because he did it far more comprehensive than I'm capable of doing at this point. If he could present this to you guys, and show you how to do this, could you or would you back that tax increase off?
If we were able to offset it on a consistent basis, sure. I mean, that's been the issue. So, because the Commonwealth, gives us roughly $500,000 and we have a $5 million budget. The $500,000 covers pension reimbursement, foreign fire reimbursement, which goes directly to fire relief associations who buy fire equipment. And then the balance is from the liquid fuels fund, that's the gas tax that you pay at the pump. So that's what we get.
Well.
So if we could
I'll
get, if
come
we got
down here
more,
and explain it.
oh yeah, and I know, Steve, but if we got, you know, more sustainable funding like that from the Commonwealth, you know, much like school districts. Although theirs is still comparatively low, ours is even lower, so if we got some portion of that, that would make it a lot easier.
And by the way, I mean, I asked Mr. Karasak, our attorney, just earlier, and even if this board wanted to backtrack on the bills that you just received, it's no longer in our purview for this year. It doesn't mean that it can't happen next year. I'm just telling you, even if
So in other words, what you're saying is you'd have to wait till next year.
that bill is out and that ship has sailed, it sailed last year effectively, that started happening. So even if there was an ability to, a desire, say, oh, we screwed up, we're gonna change it, it can't happen this year. It's already at the state. Why don't we, what was the language you said? It's in the state.
Well, it's a matter which has already been done, so you would be a stop from trying to make any change. Plus, you know, you have also then firefighters and first responders also.
Right, I just want to highlight.
Concern with respect to that.
I know there was questions, there was a gentleman out there asking if there was anything to be done this particular year besides coming and complaining.
The wheels of justice.
So the wheels have already turned on this one. That's not to say that there won't be a budgeting period next year
Absolutely.
in October. Or when do we budget?
They're typically like the first and third Wednesday in October, so they don't fall on payroll dates, and then we advertise those in their public sessions as well.
One thing to remember that's particular to Smithfield, you talk about tourists not paying their fair share, is our biggest tourist industry is Wyndham Resorts. And they have 600 units. Those are on weekly rentals, people who have bought unit shares. And so when you look at that, you realize we have 31,000 taxpayers who are paying the same rates that we're paying. They're only paying it for that 1 week of their interval, but still, that's a lot of taxes that we collect from people that are tourists.
Precisely my point.
Yeah.
For the education of everyone in the room, what Mr. Valentine is referencing is the Monroe County hotel room rental excise tax. And that ordinance, if you search that language, is available on the county website for review.
Tammy, I saw you.
I have a question I think would be great, because when you do have these budget meetings, 10 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, not everyone can make that.
Sure.
Can you put it at another time where people would be able to do that, to attend them?
It's something they'll definitely consider in
Would
the,
you consider
in the
that?
next round, sure. In the past, historically, we had more outside professionals, and that's why most of those sessions took place at that time. For the last
I
several
mean,
years.
because I wanted to go, I couldn't go.
Sure. No, I get you. And we also do have them on Zoom too, so if people can't make it physically, we allow public
I know,
participation.
I didn't see it on Zoom. Is it on Zoom?
Mhm.
The
And
budget,
they're all on YouTube too.
the budget meeting.
Yes.
Can we see your payroll every week that you will put in so we can see exactly what you're doing?
If you file a right to know request, you're more than,
That's a joke, she doesn't do them.
okay, we're not gonna get into that.
Could you explain something else to a Jim at the meeting? The people are very concerned, you pay no taxes, your family doesn't pay any taxes.
Please do
File it
not
for
talk
me.
about my family.
But explain why they're not, they're paying.
You're
any
well,
taxes.
someone would like to address that, so I'm gonna let them address it.
I'm gonna come up here. Laura, Laura, Pride, Pride. I would like to go on record with the following statement. My son Jacob Pride lives in a multi-generational home. This home is owned by my husband and myself. My husband is a disabled veteran. In the state of Pennsylvania, disabled veterans are entitled to an exemption of property taxes on the home that they own. Jacob lives in this home. In Thousands of Pennsylvania veterans with disability ratings have this tax exemption status, including thousands in Monroe County. They earned it. In the interest of transparency and to quell any unfounded rumors of nefarious action on my son's part, we are choosing to disclose this information to the public. Without an understanding of why my husband has a tax exemption, we understand that some would question this publicly available information. It has come to our attention that in recent days, this information was discussed in a public meeting. So I want to state the facts. We will not be disclosing my husband's personal information as that is private, period. Hopefully, my statement will put an end to the petty social media posts about my family's private business. But if not, so be it. My husband, along with every other veteran who puts their lives on the line for our freedom, did so, even for those who use their First Amendment rights to post baloney on social media. Thank you, and thank you to all veterans.
Anybody else?
I just, when you explained why you raised taxes, you had to pay for expenses. Did you cut anything?
I don't know about any individual line items that were cut. The reality is we were fairly.
No fat in the budget, you couldn't cut anything before you raised taxes?
I mean, I'm happy to go line by line, but the reality is we're plugging away at a structural deficit that existed for years. The millage rate brought in roughly $400,000, and that was not nearly enough to make the investments, especially in physical equipment, that we needed.
All right,
So-
so you didn't cut anything, thank you.
Not to my direct knowledge, but Pete, I'll look and I'll let you know.
Please do.
Jacob, 3 questions. One for the EMT and the fire tax. For the EMT portion, how are you going to, differentiate which goes to Bushkill and which goes to suburban? What's the percentage?
Yeah, Michael, do you want to talk about that?
There was actually a joint session today, which Julia attended, and I attended with, by Zoom. With all the townships, Lehman and Middle Smithfield, and who else was there? Price, to discuss this exact issue, because this is a new tax for everybody. And it is up to the purview of every township to decide how they want to spread it across their EMS providers and their fire company providers. We have not made a formal decision. There was a working draft of how it might get broken up, that was shared with all fire companies or just Shawnee?
All the fire companies.
That there was an analysis done based on acreage and geography that is covered by each EMS and covered by each fire company. And then there was another one on population. We actually discussed how the most ideal situation might be assessed value of land for at least the fire, but it might be very hard to calculate because the fire companies oversee areas that are not the same as census tracts or all the data that we have readily available. So it's possible to figure it out, but it might be, days and days and weeks to calculate that out. So I suspect, this is me personally saying this, that we'll end up going with the document that was prepared that's based on geography and population split. The other thing that was talked about today, and no decisions were made, the fire company, most of the fire companies were there, the EMS was there, Debbie, you were there too, right? Well, it was talking about how that money rolls out, probably quarterly, the reporting that will be required by fire. Now that it is, direct state tax dollars, there's gonna be more accountability to the fire companies and to EMS. There's going to be a required audit. They don't all have audits right now. So there's gonna be additional work for the fire and EMS to sort of get up to the speed. So there are gonna be changes that are gonna be happening. And when's the next meeting, Julia? April 1st or something? There's gonna be
It is the first Wednesday in April.
Did I miss anything else major that was discussed? Audit?
I just think we said also that the audits can be covered by the taxes that come into them.
Correct.
We're not trying to saddle them with a burden.
Remember, Vicky, that we've got a unique problem here that, let's say, Smithfield doesn't have. They're pretty much covered by Bushkill and Marshall's Creek. We've got 3 fire companies and we've got 2 ambulance companies where they have basically 1. So it's a much more complicated split here.
But nothing's been formally decided, but there has been working documents discussing to try to figure out how to do that in the most fair way possible, so that the fire companies, the EMS get their dollars accordingly.
Second question is the cable franchise fee, are you guys still getting that?
Yes.
And is that gonna be going towards the EMT fire service as always?
So it's still going to
Or is
the,
that for something else?
no, so it's still going to the township. It's in the general fund, but
That's dwindling.
yes, it is dwindling, but the revenue generated, so we made sure that the fire and EMS rates were sufficient enough to cover what we had been getting, which was roughly 120,000 a year, but sometimes it's 115, 110.
So everyone knows the cable taxes on just your Blue Ridge cable bill. If you get Blue Ridge cable, not internet, that bill, there's a little tax on there. There's a dollar amount that goes, was authorized by feds. Is it federal?
Yes.
Yes. But since more and more people are just getting their television through streaming services and not cable anymore, and you cannot tax the streaming service, that's a huge reason that my understanding that the fire companies have seen dwindling dollars is related to that cable tax. I think Middle Smithfield decided to do away with it
Middle Smithfield
entirely.
did away with it. Their revenue was a little bit less stable than ours was. The reality is the rates would have had to have been higher to avoid.
And the
It wouldn't
third
any-
question is, once you get the EMT and the fire tax going, will Debbie Cooley come every month again and ask for money?
No,
Oh, no.
no.
I just wanna
She'll-
make sure.
She'll be getting a distribution, but let's remind everyone, it's not just Debbie personally, it's.
It's not me personally.
Well, I've only seen you, I've only seen
Thank
you
you.
come for ask for money all the time, only Bushkill comes. I haven't seen Suburban come and ask for money,
They have come.
only once for presentation.
They've come a couple of times and we've had other presentations, kind of like the work group we've been doing with our municipal neighbors. They haven't come back with a final ask in a while.
So they haven't come and asked every month.
No, but
For money.
if Smithfield Township didn't do what it did, I don't know that we would have Bushkill EMS at all. And the reality is when you have Suburban, they're coming over, you know, the response times are going to be much greater if we don't. So we felt it was something worthwhile to keep doing.
Well, my question is because my concern is Bushkill doesn't come to my area. Suburban is always around my area. So that's why, that's the question I
I
have.
mean, when you have depleted calls, they can go anywhere. Debbie can tell you she, but within the West End just recently because the nature of the county 911 system is whomever doesn't respond, then it goes to the next and it's based on distance.
By the way, there was a lot of discussion today in the township, in the meeting with the different townships and the fire and EMS, that because of this new tax, there is a sort of a hope for a little bit more consistency. Subscriptions which exist with Suburban, I guess they exist with Bushkill as well, but looking at how that's gonna come out, might be a little bit different. Because now everyone is paying this, every single person is now paying a specific tax. But this doesn't eliminate the right or hopefully the ability for some other people to the right of the fire companies and EMS to request donations, especially for the nonprofit, I guess they're nonprofit.
Correct.
And the ability for them to fundraise. So the fire companies are still gonna continue to fundraise as our EMS.
Have you reached out to Pocono Hospital yet to see if they'd be willing to do an ambulance?
They are not.
We
We
have
have
both
reached
systems.
out to both systems, both Lehigh Valley and St. Louis,
Talk to them.
Lucas,
and I did.
we did.
Michael, you're in a better position to do it, I think.
I can see what I can do. It's gonna be a new hospital network in
Few weeks.
in a month anyway. No, I'm just saying Lehigh Valley is getting merged, so you never know.
I know, you know,
Okay.
about being old.
No, I mean, I guess I'm saying you never know. It might, that decision might change. Who knows? Jefferson.
Anybody else? Do I? Go ahead, Christine.
I want to get off the subject of taxes, everybody, is everybody done with taxes? I don't.
We good? Okay.
Yes.
Last meeting, there was some discussion about ordinance 187, which is, which dictates the activities of the zoning officer. And item 5 under that zoning ordinance is that he provide a monthly report to both the Board of Supervisors and the zoning hearing board. There's a lot of talk about new stuff that's happening and in the works, but I don't know that an actual report from the zoning officer to those two boards was actually confirmed, like that will begin taking place.
No, 100% that is going.
Okay, okay. Cool, that's it.
All right, right here, a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Levin, I'm second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We adjourned at 7:42. Thank you, everybody.